Drive. Sarah Miller sat in her neatly arranged office, surrounded by calming blue walls and motivational quotes. She glanced at the file of her newest patient, Caleb Johnson. As a seasoned therapist, especially with marginalized communities, Dr. Miller had seen her share of troubled teens, but Caleb's case was particularly concerning. Caleb, a 16-year-old black student, had recently begun therapy. His mother had reached out, deeply worried about his sudden withdrawal and plummeting grades. Caleb attended a predominantly white school where he faced relentless bullying, but the administration had shown little interest in addressing the problem. Drive. Miller knew that Caleb's environment, both at school and home, played a crucial role in his emotional struggles. As the time approached for their session, Dr. Miller made sure her office felt as welcoming as possible. She understood that the first session was often the hardest, especially for someone as withdrawn as Caleb. The door creaked open, and Caleb entered. Tall for his age, he carried himself with a quiet strength, but his sadness was palpable. His mother, a worried figure with tired eyes, gently nudged him forward before taking his seat in the waiting area. "Hi, Caleb," Dr. Miller greeted with a warm smile, hoping to ease his nerves. "You can call me Sarah if you'd like." Caleb barely nodded, his arms crossed tightly as he avoided eye contact. Drive. Miller knew this pasture well, a silent cry for help, masked by fear and defensiveness. "Take a seat wherever you feel comfortable," she suggested. Caleb sat down, still not meeting her gaze. Drive. Miller decided to start with a softer approach, knowing that building trust would take time. "I became a therapist because I want to help people like you," she said gently. "You don't have to go through this alone." Caleb remained silent, his eyes fixed on the floor. But Dr. Miller understood. This silence was a wall, built to protect himself from a world that had been unkind. Over the next few sessions, Caleb continued to speak minimally. His responses were short, and he seemed to withdraw further with each visit. Drive. Miller tried different approaches, asking him about school, his hobbies, and his home life, but Caleb remained guarded. Despite this, she noticed small victories, a brief nod, a soft smile, or a few more words spoken than the last session. She knew that helping him open up fully would take time and patience. During a phone call with Caleb's mother, Mrs. Johnson voiced her increasing concern. "He used to be so full of life, but now, it's like I barely know him. His grades are slipping, and I've seen bruises on his arms. When I ask him about it, he just says he fell, but I know something is wrong. The school won't do anything unless there's proof of the bullying." Drive. Miller's heart sank. She had heard this story too many times before. Schools failing to protect vulnerable students, leaving them to fend for themselves. In her next session with Caleb, she gently brought up the subject of school. "Caleb, your mom mentioned that school has been tough lately. Is there anything specific that's bothering you?" Caleb's reaction was immediate. His shoulders tensed, and he shrugged, trying to brush it off. "It's nothing," he muttered. Drive. Miller didn't push, but continued to offer a safe space. She knew that he was carrying a heavy burden and wasn't ready to fully share it yet, but she remained patient. A few weeks later, something shifted. It was a rainy afternoon, and the sound of the rain tapping on the window seemed to create a quiet, safe space. Caleb, sitting in his usual chair, suddenly spoke, his voice trembling. "I don't want to go to school anymore." Drive. Miller leaned in gently. "Why not, Caleb? What's been happening?" Tears welled up in his eyes as he spoke, his voice cracking with emotion. "They hate me. They call me names, push me, tell me I don't belong, because I'm black." Drive. Miller felt a surge of anger and sadness for Caleb. "No one should ever be treated like that," she said firmly. "You deserve to be treated with respect, and you don't have to go through this alone." Caleb wiped his tears, his voice barely above a whisper. "I can't take it anymore. Sometimes, I just want it to stop. All of it." Drive. Miller's chest tightened, knowing the gravity of what he was saying. She leaned forward, her voice calm but serious. "Caleb, I need you to promise me something. If you ever feel like you can't handle it, if you ever think about hurting yourself, You need to reach out. You can talk to me, your mom, or anyone you trust. Can you promise me that? Caleb nodded weakly. I promise, he whispered. In the following weeks, Dr. Miller worked intensively with Caleb. She taught him coping strategies, helped him identify his triggers, and gradually built up his confidence. Despite the progress in therapy, the bullying at school continued, and Caleb's emotional distress grew worse. Drive. Miller contacted the school administration, demanding a meeting to discuss Caleb's situation, but the school's response was dismissive. We haven't seen any evidence of bullying, the principal said coldly. Without proof, we can't take action. Frustrated, Dr. Miller knew she needed to take further action. She contacted a lawyer, discussing the possibility of a legal case against the school for failing to protect Caleb. One afternoon, Caleb missed a therapy session, and Dr. Miller's concern skyrocketed. She immediately called Mrs. Johnson, whose voice trembled with panic. He hasn't been home all day, Mrs. Johnson said, her voice breaking. I don't know where he is. Drive. Miller rushed to their home, and together, they began searching the neighborhood. As night fell, the anxiety grew heavier with every passing minute. Hours passed without any sign of Caleb. Just when hope seemed to be slipping away, they heard a faint sound from the park. Rushing towards it, they found Caleb sitting alone on a bench, drenched in rain and despair. Caleb, drive, Miller called out, running to him. We've been looking everywhere for you. Caleb looked up, his eyes swollen from crying. I didn't know where else to go, he whispered. You're not alone, Doctor, Miller said, her voice full of warmth. We're going to get through this together. Drive. Miller helped him to his feet, guiding him back home. The next day, she, Caleb, and his family met with the lawyer to discuss the lawsuit against the school. The legal battle was long and difficult, but it drew attention to the larger issue of racial bullying and the systemic failures that allowed it to persist. Caleb transferred to a new, more inclusive school where he thrived. The change of environment gave him a fresh start, and his grades improved. He began to make new friends and regain his confidence. Under Dr. Miller's guidance, Caleb continued therapy, focusing on healing from the trauma of his past and developing skills to face future challenges. The lawsuit also sent a powerful message to other schools about the importance of addressing bullying and protecting students. Caleb's story became a symbol of hope, resilience, and the power of support. He faced unimaginable challenges, but found the strength to overcome them with the help of his therapist, his family, and his own determination. His journey serves as a reminder that no one should have to endure bullying, and with the right support, even the darkest moments can lead to a brighter future.